It was that commonality that first found us. Broad definitions of who each of us were, yet known to one another, were spelled out by the very fact that each of us was here, in this place, on a Sunday morning in the year of the millennium. We didn't need Match.com to bring us together. We did it the old school way, in person. Basic values for living life, spelled out in the UU principles and sources, were inherent to who we were then and remained. Even though the religions of our childhood were very different and we arrived here from very different life paths, our beings recognized the similarities and potential between us. Demographically and in mindset, we were each dedicated to being part of the UU community. On one September Sunday, SJ was at a table in Forbes Hall after service. He was signing up for people for a blood drive by YAG, which you've already heard of, the young adult group, even though both of us were more than a tad beyond being a young adult, even then, 25 years ago. We were embraced and found our chosen family in that group. During a coffee hour chat, he asked me if I were busy that very evening, as he had an extra ticket to see Brian Wilson perform his classic Pet Sounds album. Even I, with an almost comical lack of pop culture knowledge, knew the Beach Boys, so I readily accepted. However, I had to be told that Brian Wilson was part of the band. Life was different in Indiana, where I had lived most of my life before moving to California a couple years earlier. I grew up on a farm where long days of work filled summer and after-school hours, leaving little time for typical teenage activity. The only music I knew was on top 40 AM radio from Chicago. SJ gets the credit that I would be transformed into a California girl. I found out that I had a few things in common with SJ's beloved mother, Ruth, whom I spoke to only once before she passed in 2001. In addition to being a UU, Ruth was also born a Midwesterner, she being from Illinois. She studied home economics in college, as did I. These puzzle pieces fit together somewhere in the infrastructure of my relationship with SJ. SJ became part of my family. I have wonderful memories of times we spent with my three granddaughters, who are here today, Anna, Grace, and Cora, when they were young. I'm proud that they, along with my son Adam, have traveled here from Washington and Michigan to be here. SJ was part of their family too. I'm wearing the dress that SJ purchased for me years ago in a funky San Francisco boutique. He was much better at fashion than I. I've worn this dress once before when we got married. SJ would have liked it that I'm wearing it today. SJ was my Pied Piper into his fabulous LA world. I doubt I would have ever discovered music festivals, backpacking in the Sierras, Denali, or on Kauai, skydiving, or a month in Alaska and the Yukon on the Green Tortoise without him. That is not to mention all those Grateful Dead shows we shared, which I can only describe as celebrations of joy. These adventures set the foundation for the years we spent together. We were the best together, though our relationship was complicated. We tried marriage, but somehow we were not to be defined by that legal convention. We were each too devoted to following our own drummer. We allowed each other to explore our own paths, knowing that at the end of the day, we would be there to listen to and hold one another. We've had a long goodbye in the 3 years since his diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. It was pretty awful at the end, and a blessing that his suffering is now past. I will always love you and miss you, SJ. The morning after he passed, I was standing in the rising sun at the window, and a shiny blue-black crow landed on the deck, just feet from where I stood. He let out, caw, caw, caw. Immediately, I was taken back to times out walking with SJ, when a crow might appear. More times than not, SJ would call out to it, caw, caw, caw. Usually the bird would answer back in kind. Some people would say that that crow on the deck was SJ's spirit, bringing a message to me. Despite what anyone might believe about that, I can solidly report that it brought back SJ's memory and put a smile on my face. Wouldn't be bad if crows also always brought me that kind of message.